I don't want no oil a-spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus. And a big hello to everyone in Bowling Green, or every one of you listening on the internet, wherever or whenever you may be. I am your friend and host, Shehbaz Khan, and I am here with my long-suffering co-host,
Rebecca Wood,
welcome, Rebecca.
who didn't know where her microphone was exactly for a couple seconds there. I found it.
Good. Now let's keep going. Together, Rebecca and I are going to create a unique and informative hour of radio called For a Green Future. This show, For a Green Future, is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about them in the ways that they affect you, your wealth and your health and your happiness, and the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and family, and the health of aeroplankton and whales, bees and slugs, birds and fish. Because, like it or not, we are all together on this oblate spheroid called Earth. So we might as well try to get along. We have got a great show for you this week. So first we are going to chat for next 15 minutes or so. Then we have a live interview with our guest, Helen Jaccard. She is with the Veterans for Peace, and they are sponsoring the resurrection of a ship that played a key role in stopping the environmentally disastrous open-air nuclear bomb tests that were poisoning the planet with radiation back in the 1950s. The Golden Rule is coming to Toledo. She will tell us when and why. Then at the bottom of the hour, we'll hear from our incredibly intelligent patrons and sponsors, to whom we are very, very grateful. After that, we will hear from Rebecca. Rebecca, what will you be discussing today?
What will I be discussing today? Oh, Canadian wildfires for sure. Maybe some other stuff.
Oh my God, the Canadian wildfires, they are still going on.
Yes.
That sounds scary and interesting as always. Then it is on to ecological news. So you may have noticed so far that even the mainstream media is starting to sound alarmed. Now, but don't worry, just as we are here on the green for a green future for years have been telling you what was going to be and what was going to happen if we did not stop putting carbon in the air. Now that those disasters are actually happening, we are going to stay with you and guide you through the process of ecological collapse for as long as we are able to do that. So, if you have any questions about the disasters that are in the process of happening, call in at 877-909-1007. That is 877-909-1007. This week and the next 2 weeks, it is especially important that you call in. You see, we are considering to change the format of the show. We do the show live every week in order to give you folks a chance to call in. And you can feel free to call in with any comments you might have on any environmental topic you would like to discuss. Call us at 877 909 1007. Comments can also be texted to 419 973 5841. Comments can also be texted to 419 973 5841. You can also email us at joe@jodimayor foragreenfuture.org. The email is joe@jodimayor foragreenfuture.org. Sadly, we don't get very many calls, so we are thinking of changing this program to a pre recorded format. If we don't get any calls in the next couple of weeks, we will do that. So, if there is something you have been thinking of and thinking of calling or asking about it, do it today or in the next 2 weeks. Or,
Speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say.
yeah, or you might lose your chance. As the show must go on, let's continue with the show. One of the disasters that is unfolding right now is the Canadian wildfires. But some good news to report. The number of fires may be plateauing. There are still over 580 wildfires blazing, about the same as last week, with about half out of control. So far this year, about 12.1 million hectares have burned, an area larger than the state of Pennsylvania. This is still more than 7 times the average. So far, 3 firefighters have been killed and people are being displaced all over Canada. Indigenous communities are being hit especially hard, and we have been working on getting interviews. We are trying to get interviews from people up north. The global warming situation this summer has gotten so bad that President Biden felt compelled to address the nation on it. This past Thursday, I think you probably did not hear about this nationwide address because he actually did not say much. There were only a few hundred people watching it live on the White House YouTube channel. Our reporters, of course, watched the whole thing because we are responsible journalists. President Biden reviewed the amount of money that is being spent on the problem in the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, but he did not announce any new programs. He did urge everyone to, and I quote, always carry water with you, unquote, which is a good thing, of course, but hardly ground shaking news.
Okay, thank you for that, Biden. I never would have thought of it myself.
Well, he just gave a grandpa advice, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
He did hint that he might put federal regulations into place that would directly reverse Texas state's recent law banning water breaks for outside workers. Just imagine that.
Yeah, I have friends who work for the Postal Service. They do not have AC in their trucks.
That's very bad. I mean,
Yep.
well, he correctly pointed out that Texas's law is crazy and will result in deaths, but stopped short of actually committing to challenge it. It would be a good battle to fight. OSHA, OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is charged with keeping American workers safe and has many different regulations in many different kinds of workplaces that do just that. It would certainly be within OSHA's authority to say that outdoor workers in heat must have mandatory water and shade breaks. Insane states like Texas would announce that they are ignoring the new rule. But how could they enforce that? What state troopers would go around arresting linemen they find sitting in shade drinking water? Would Governor Abbott send National Guard troops into the fields to make sure agricultural workers don't stop for breaks? Does that make any sense?
It's more kind of a slavery type thing,
It
but
is
whatever.
it is the perfect case for federal authorities to protect workers. But again, Biden only hinted he might try something like that someday, and we hope he does. He did announce the launch of a website, heat.gov, which has a pretty nice map of the heat advisories and temperatures around the country. According to that website, 120 million Americans are currently under heat advisories.
Okay, President Biden has handled the situation by telling us that we're hot and we should drink water.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
well, thank you,
And he also
President
said,
Biden.
and he also sent us, a website. And that this very same website claims like 120 million people, Americans. So it's almost half of the population. Well, he also had President Biden also had the mayors of San Antonio, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona speak. Both of these cities are doing good things like planting trees, providing cooling centers, and electrified mass transit. But highlighting these exceptional cities only brought home the point that there is no unified national response to the problem. We are still missing that. Still, it could have been worse. At least the mayor of San Antonio pointed out on a national stage that it is the rooftop solar that Texans have installed in the last year that is keeping Texas's grid stable and preventing another grid collapse like the one that killed almost 250 people in the 2022 winter storm. After that experience, many Texans have rushed to put solar panels on their home, giving them independent power and stabilizing the whole grid. Also, Biden did not launch into another sales pitch for nuclear power. At one point, it seemed like he was about to, but maybe someone finally explained it to him that any new nuclear plants are a decade away, far too late to do us any good. He did praise Texas for generating a lot of wind and solar power. Many people had been hoping that Biden would announce new programs to limit fossil fuel exploitation or at least declare global warming as an emergency. But he did nothing like that. So, like the people of Texas, we are all having to deal with the crisis largely on our own. So, like the people of Texas, you all too should get solar panels on your roof with battery backup so that you will be protected in case of disaster as well. And as they say, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah, I heard a story this week that some lady from the Office of something Climate Change Adaptation is saying that OSHA needs to. No, FEMA needs to deal with, start naming heat waves and dealing with them the same way they do other natural disasters. Although that's really kind of not an ideal solution to the problem. Maybe stopping them would be even better.
Yes, that is also correct. So because even though at the moment we are not doing too badly here in Ohio, the same kind of extreme weather that has been hammering so many other parts of the world will come here too. We got a little taste of that on Friday night when we had this tremendous thunderstorm, tearing through people all over the northwest Ohio out of their sound sleep. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, thunderstorm. Yeah, our air conditioning went out. It went out for like half a day, and if our adequate showed up, I'm not going to call him the super. There's a pretty good chance we might not have made it. Our windows don't really open. We don't get a cross breeze. So again, is it an electronic device which is dependent on the power grid, which is dominated by coal and nuclear, which, well, I don't know, it's probably just a down line at that point, but still, that's how vulnerable we are, that people start dying the second the lights go out.
Yep. Now I would like to bring the all the attention of all our listeners and viewers. So, back in the 1950s, the idea of stopping nuclear testing seemed impossible. The US military, the mightiest organization of humans in human history, was determined to have as many tests as possible. Each test was seen as a show of strength, and the nuclear powers often held nuclear tests in response to each other's tests. Things were spiraling towards destruction. It seemed like the nuclear war proponents were winning. But an incredibly brave group, superheroes. This group directly challenged the war machine, putting their lives on the line in an incredible act of non-violent resistance that echoes down to this day. But let us tell our guest tell you about it. So, let's get on with our live interview. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Helen Jaccard. I'm the project manager for the Veterans for Peace Golden Rule sailboat.
So,
And I've been the crew and the champion of this project since 2015.
wow. Thank you so very much for joining us on this show. This show is going on live, and I once again, I thank you very much for taking out time to talk to us on this show. So please, can you tell us more, give us a little bit more background information about Veterans for Peace?
Veterans for Peace is a group of military veterans and supporters. There are veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and many other conflicts around the world. There are some non-veteran members like myself who help raise up the veterans' voice and assist in the work of this vital organization. We have over 100 chapters, including chapters in other countries. And the Golden Rule project and sailboat implements some of the objectives of Veterans for Peace, which aims to expose the true cost of war, to abolish nuclear weapons, and to end all war.
Please, tell us like how the Golden Rule, it created a worldwide headlines. Please, can you tell our listeners about,
From 1946 to 1958, the United States used 67 nuclear weapons in the Pacific, in the Marshall Islands. And the radioactivity from those bombs was blowing all over the planet as it goes into the upper atmosphere. And it was producing elements that don't exist in nature, like strontium-90, for example, acts like calcium chemically. And that was getting into babies' teeth and bones and mother's milk and cow's milk. And that was possibly one of the biggest things that people were concerned about, was the radiation getting into our bodies. And people did everything they could think of to try to stop the nuclear weapons tests. And ultimately, this group of nonviolent activists got the Golden Rule. Now, mostly the sailors were Quakers, the Religious Friends Society, and they decided to get a boat, and they just were going to sail right into the Marshall Islands testing zone and put their lives in the way.
My God.
And nobody knew what was going to happen. Well, they bought the Golden Rule and supplied it, headed out of Los Angeles, and made it as far as Honolulu. They resupplied and headed towards the Marshall Islands, and the Coast Guard brought them back. The crew was arrested and spent 2 months in jail.
Oh, my.
This is a very well-publicized activity. Another boat arrived at the same time that the crew was undergoing their trial, and the Phoenix of Hiroshima was captained by Dr. Earl Reynolds, who had spent 3 years studying the effects of radiation on children in Hiroshima. He and his family were completing a trip around the world when they encountered the crew of the Golden Rule, learned the story, and they and their Japanese crewmen, who had lost his brother in the bombing of Hiroshima, decided that they would take the baton and complete the voyage to the Marshall Islands, and they did. So what these two boats did produced a big stink and a huge anti-nuclear movement that allowed President Kennedy to have the political cover to sign the Limited Test Ban Treaty of 1963 with Great Britain and the USSR.
Okay.
So that's what happened in 1958. Ultimately, therefore, atmospheric nuclear testing was stopped. Eventually, Greenpeace helped to stop underground nuclear testing. They took their tactics directly from the Golden Rule. And then the Golden Rule in 1958 was sold into private hands and wasn't heard from again until 2010, when she sank in a gale in far northern California. Veterans for Peace found her and decided that they wanted to restore her not just as a boat, but as a way to stop the possibility of nuclear war and get rid of nuclear weapons. So it took 5 years, 2010 to 2015, to restore the Golden Rule. And I came onto the project right before she was finished, ended up crewing for 5 years up and down the West Coast, 2 years all around the Hawaiian Islands, and then we were headed to the Marshall Islands, and then on to Japan for the 65th anniversary of the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. However, at the same time that we were ready to take off from Honolulu, COVID closed down all those countries, and our activities became much less for a while. So we brought the Golden Rule back to California and decided to implement the dream of the people who had rebuilt her, which was to sail all of the navigable waters of the United States. So we put her on a truck, we took her to Minnesota, and we sailed down the entire center of the country, around the tip of Florida, visited Cuba, went way far north to Bath, Maine, back to New York, through the Erie Canal, the Oswego Canal, and now we're we sailed around up to Toronto, and then came back through the Welland Canal. Now the Golden Rule is in Buffalo, New York.
Okay. Well, so can you tell us about the crew on the current voyage? I mean, are they still the original crew? Can you tell us about that?
No, it's not the original crew. The youngest of those crew is in his 80s and lives in Salt Lake City, and Orion Sherwood is the only original crew member still alive. He was able to come in 2015 to the relaunch of the Golden Rule, and then met us in San Diego and got to sail her. It takes a crew of 4 people to sail the Golden Rule, but we've always had a rotating crew. So we've had, 150 maybe captains or crew members, maybe 30 or 40 captains. I mean, this is a boat that's, it's a classic wooden boat. It has a tiller instead of a steering wheel. It's fun to sail. It's a ketch, so she has 2 masts. The mainsail has a giant Veterans for Peace logo on it, and the mizzen sail, which is in the back of the boat, has a giant peace symbol on it. So you can see us coming from a mile away easily. And in fact, one time we went underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and somebody sent us some pictures saying, "I saw your boat come through," and I looked her up and found out.
Wow. So, please, do let us know how we can follow you on social media as well. So please let our listeners also know about that. So
you can go to the Facebook page. Its handle is Golden Rule Peace Boat. All one word, Golden Rule Peace Boat. There's also our website, vfpgoldenrule.org. That'll give you the full calendar of events, including in Toledo.
Okay. Okay.
So you can look us at vfpgoldenrule.org, and there's a link on there to our Facebook page as well. Most of our upcoming information is on the website. Most of our Facebook pages are things, Facebook posts are things that we are doing right now or have done. We'll be in Toledo August 10 through 13. There's a whole schedule of events online that you can take a look at. Come see the boat. She's very dramatic. We're going to be at the Promenade Park Portside
Mm-hmm.
Dock, number 5 or 6. It's at the bottom of Jefferson Avenue.
Okay. Okay, Jefferson Avenue. We will give a reminder to our listeners once again.
That was under construction a few weeks ago. I hope they have it all nice and gussied up for you.
I hope so too.
Okay, I think let's get into a little bit of the ecological impact of nuclear weapons. Leaving nuclear winter aside for the moment, why should we care if a nuclear bomb is exploded on the other side of the world?
There's several aspects to this question. One is that just mining and milling the uranium produces devastating impacts wherever it's done. So it affects the indigenous communities, like on the Navajo Nation, where people are suffering from the abandoned uranium mines. There's 15,000 of those in 15 western states. So this partly it represents environmental racism against the indigenous peoples, like I say, throughout the world wherever uranium is mined. Beyond that, all the rest of the processes, like enriching uranium, produce contamination outside of the facility. And so you see places like the Paducah gaseous diffusion plant and Piketon, Ohio, same thing. That plutonium that's produced and used to make the weapons ends up off-site. Birds, bats, everything, animals carry it off-site. People carry it on their shoes. It ends up in schools. So there's that. Then, if an explosion happens, no matter where, it goes into the atmosphere just like it did when we were doing the testing. So, of course, nearest the blast, you've got an area that's left so contaminated you can't grow crops or eat the fish. You're likely to get cancer. The strontium-90 that's produced that gets into teeth and bones because it acts like calcium. And then we also have to ask ourselves, do we care about human life? Everyone has friends and relatives and neighbors. Does it matter where they live, what kind of government they have? Do we value human life? Do we try to reduce suffering in the world?
I must say,
Do we want our culture of war to produce this kind of result? This is a weapon of mass destruction. It doesn't kill military people. It kills civilians. It's a war crime to use a weapon of mass destruction. It's something that has no distinction between civilian and military casualties. These are the most destructive, inhumane, indiscriminate weapons ever created, and now they're internationally illegal. The United Nations passed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and it's been ratified by enough countries to make it international law. That's how terrible this is. It falls in the same category as cluster bombs, landmines, chemical weapons, and biological weapons. So now they are all illegal. And I think that even one modern nuclear weapon having been used could potentially result in escalation to the point where we do end up with nuclear autumn or nuclear winter. And that's, society killing. So society faces these two existential threats, the one you were just talking about before I came on, climate change, and the other one that most people aren't yet talking about, nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons, that is so true. And all the questions you mentioned are so very relevant, and that's what we try to do here on this show, For a Green Future, this organization, For a Green Future. It tries to pursue the very same questions about well-being of other people and the climate as whole. So please, if you can go into a little bit more detail about the radioactive isotopes created in the bomb explosions or a nuclear plant, how do these radioisotopes go from being created to actually harming people and other living things?
Right, and the ones that are dangerous are the ones that get into your body. You know, just being around something like standing next to a granite wall, which has got a little bit of radioactivity, is not the issue. The issue is when you breathe it in or you consume it. So as soon as it gets into the water or the air, you've got a big problem. So, for example, strontium-90 is blown into the atmosphere. When it comes down, that's what gets into babies' teeth and bones and causes them future problems. Iodine-131, which we know from the Fukushima disaster and 3 Mile Island and others, it goes towards your thyroid. Every radioactive element that can get into your body that replaces something that's healthy with something that's radioactive is going to sit there and cause cancer. So that's the danger of both a nuclear bomb explosion and a meltdown of a nuclear power plant. You know, here's one thing that happened that most people don't know about. In 1959, the Santa Susana Field Lab, not too far from Los Angeles, was a research nuclear power plant that had a meltdown. Mm-hmm. And the United States government covered that up to the point where there were communities built near there. And recently, these moms were in the hospital with their children who had leukemia.
Oh, man.
And they were talking to each other in the waiting room. Well, what's wrong with your child? Leukemia. Where do you live? Simi Valley. Oh. Really? Oh. And they kept seeing more and more of these cases. Finally, they discovered there were at least 50 cases of childhood leukemia that were caused by that meltdown. And that was a small nuclear power plant, small nuclear reactor. So, you know, the results can be devastating for a community, and the secrecy involved in it is another one of the crimes that's happening, that every time there's something that goes on, they just say, oh, there's nothing to see here, right? Let's cover this up. And let's cover-ups are a crime.
Yeah. And what quickly comes to my mind is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Helen, when these explosions happen, open-air explosions, and you mentioned like 67 nuclear explosions had taken place. So what I have learned is that the flow of air as it rises up in the atmosphere, like stratosphere, ionosphere, all the direction of the wind changes as it goes higher and higher. So if the nuclear radiation is there, it will definitely flow along with the direction of the air, as you mentioned. So are these radioactive isotopes or these nuclear pollutants, do they still travel at such great heights, and do they have potential to carry the damage to a longer
What
distance?
I've read recently is that since the atmospheric nuclear weapons testing has stopped, the amount of radiation in the upper atmosphere is much less now because it's been so many years. But it does stay up there for decades, and so it does go all around the planet as the winds blow all around the planet. So it's less dangerous now than it had been in 1963 when the weapons testing was stopped by the main superpowers. You know, so let's not put any more of that up into the atmosphere.
Correct. True. Now let us come back to the nuclear winter. What would happen to the planet in the event of an all-out nuclear war? Please, can you elaborate it to our listeners?
I'd like to first just say, instead of an all-out nuclear war, let's just talk a little bit about what happened in the case of what would happen if India and Pakistan got into conflict over their shared territory of Kashmir. Right? So there's, if you used 100 nuclear weapons only, that alone would bring about these giant fires and put up so much soot and ash into the atmosphere that it would reduce crop production because it would block out quite a bit of sunlight. That reduced crop production would result in the starvation of 2 billion people, about 25% of the planetary population. That alone is reason for not even having even 100 nuclear weapons on this planet. Now, if there was an all-out nuclear war, then we would produce an ice age like would kill most life on Earth. And it's not that it would kill all life on Earth, but it would certainly kill all humans.
So you folks are so much committed to preventing that from happening. I sincerely believe that, and I sincerely support that. Can you give us a little bit more details about this voyage of the Golden Rule? And please remind our listeners and viewers about the Toledo event as well, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes. So right now the Golden Rule is in Buffalo, and we'll be in Toledo August 10th through 13th. Get the schedule of events as it sometimes changes. We add new events sometimes on VFP, as in Veterans for Peace, VFPGoldenRule.org. We'll start out August 10th from 4 to 6 p.m. will be a welcome and a press conference. The mayor of Toledo is coming, local leaders. There'll be an indigenous ceremony with musicians. You'll get to meet the crew. The next day, August 11th, from 10 till 3, we'll have open boat, so you can come meet the crew and walk around the boat and learn about the project. Also on August 11th, from 5 till 8 p.m., we'll be at the Rotary Roundhouse Shelter in the Middle Grounds Metro Park. That's going to be a fun picnic and potluck and fundraiser. There'll be musicians and poets and speakers. So that's going to be a wonderful time where you can also sign a petition and write a letter to your representatives in favor of the prohibition of nuclear weapons, as well as some other things that we support, which is these come from Back from the Brink, a new organization devoted to stepping back from the brink of nuclear war, which is not only to implement the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, get the United States and everyone else to ratify it, but also to get rid of the $2 trillion program to replace every aspect of our nuclear weapons program, get rid of the president's sole authority to launch a nuclear strike, declare a no first use policy, as China has done, and implement that by taking all of the nuclear weapons off of hair trigger alert. And that also means that we need to remove the weapons from the missiles. One of the most dangerous things on the planet is the ICBMs that are scattered throughout the Midwest. I think there's 450 of them left. And they are like 5 minutes from the decision to launch them until they're gone, and you can't recall them. And so it's really dangerous, doesn't allow any time for verification, negotiation, understanding what may have happened. And because of them, we have come very close to nuclear war several times already. So there'll be an opportunity to learn more about the Back from the Brink measures to keep us safe, as well as the UN treaty, and what you can do, what everybody can do to stop the possibility of nuclear war. We are not powerless, and we need people to know that they can take action.
That is correct. And before I end, this is one quick question. So you said you are in Buffalo, New York. Have you ever been to Buffalo, New York before? And if so, what is your observation in terms of environment, climate, or ecology? I mean, has it changed? What is your observation? I mean, what comes to your mind, top of your mind?
I have never been to Buffalo before, and I've not even quite been there yet myself. So I don't know, but I do know that wherever we go, we do learn about the effects of the military and their activities on the environment. And, for example, in the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac Rivers, there's a lot of contamination there from military bases. And the Potomac River near Washington, D.C., has an active firing range where they take bullets and bombs and missiles. Or I don't know about missiles, but they blast right into the Potomac River.
Oh my God.
So it's got heavy metals from the casings, shell casings, and it's got explosive chemical residues that are right there in the water. And that's before you even consider the forever chemicals, the PFAS, that is dumped in there from, greases and things from the air bases, and the firefighting foam that the military uses for practicing putting out fires. So, and then in Hawaii, oh my gosh, that's the effect of the U.S. military on the Hawaiian Islands and their culture and their ecology is just devastating.
Thank you, Helen, for such an informative and educative interview. Sadly, unfortunately, we are running out of time. It was great to have you on this show, Helen. Thank you very much. And for the listeners, it is vfpgoldenrule.org. Event is on August 10th to 13th. You can follow them on the social media as well. Golden Rule Peace Boat. That is on Facebook.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be on your show today, and we will see you very soon.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dear listeners, many people, that was Helen Jaccard. Thank you very much once again. Many people today don't even know that part of our history, and that's a shame because it was one of the humanity's shinier moments. Our patrons and sponsors are also shiny beacons of reason in an increasingly dark world. Let's hear from them now.
For a Green Future is also brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They also restore wildlife habitats and lead people on outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. There are several ways to get a hold of them and find out what's happening. One is to call them at 419-353-1897. Another is to visit their website, www.wcparks.org. The website again is www.wcparks.org. They are also available on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and many others. Just search for WC Parks. That's the Wood County Park District, and we're very grateful for their support.
Thank you very much. And I think we have a caller online today. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm, excuse me. I wanted to, I don't know exactly what I haven't been able to be listening, but there's something that, environmental issue that I'm concerned about. I didn't know if anyone else had any issue or any information about it, but I've been noticing recently that there are no hawks to be seen. I mean, specifically the ubiquitous red-tailed hawks, which we normally would see. I mean, you couldn't go a mile on any highway without seeing a couple on a fence or whatever. And I've been looking purposely, and I haven't seen any for the summer. And I don't know what's happened, but it's very troubling because I grew up in this area, and because of DDT, there weren't any when I was a kid. And I was, so happy to see them make a comeback. Do you have any, I don't know if you have any information about that, or if you're aware of it, what's going on?
Well, I think first of all, thank you very much for calling in. Can I know your name, please?
Yeah, it's Carrie. My name is Carrie.
Carrie, and where are you from?
Where am I? I'm from West Toledo.
West Toledo. Okay. First, let me congratulate you. You made a great observation. I personally have not noticed the decline in the sightings of red-tailed fox, but we
Hawks.
will hawks. Sorry, but we will surely try to follow this story and maybe do some research on this as well.
People are telling me that they're not seeing or they're not hearing a lot of birds this year. Generally, in this area and kind of around the country, I see it. So I don't know.
Well,
Hawks eat birds, and
that
hawks
would
are
counter
birds.
in my particular yard, which I have allowed to become diverse, biologically diverse,
Mhm.
and hope to possibly get it connected to openings at some point. But it's a very small piece, but it would qualify for some in some ways. But I have a good diversity of birds in my yard. I mean, I
Good,
keep
good.
a journal, and my birds are on target. I think from the various two or three species of sparrows to uh, golden
Mhm.
finches, house finches, blue
Mhm.
jays, bluebirds, robins, um, uh, two kinds of woodpeckers. So for my cardinals, my area, or at least this specific location,
Mhm.
it's my bird population seems fine. But then, as I said,
Excellent.
I have I allow various plants and whatnot to grow so that they have the correct correct variety of feed and that kind of thing. But the hawks I'm really worried about because I've checked all the way from here
Mhm.
to I have some relatives that have a farm down near Lucky, Ohio. So on 199, on 23, on 475 both, and on 280, these are highways. And as I said, over the past 30 years, I would say, you would not drive. I would say you would not drive a mile without
I mean, they will come
obviously
across.
seeing
You
one.
can, yeah, you can come across the horses very
Oh, they're
easily.
always there, and
Mm-hmm.
there are none anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very troubling.
Okay, one quick
So
question
I
for
don't
you,
know
sir.
if the highway department started using DET again, or because they are doing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the highway work. They're putting these big walls. So I don't know. I wanted to just call its attention to people, and I kind of was going to send an email to the ornithology department.
Okay, okay.
I think it's at
Thank you.
I don't know, University of Philadelphia, but I'll just 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 to put the word out there.
Yeah, that's a great effort, and we request all our other listeners also to be to be that vigilant, to have an eye of observation, and also, I mean, while you're taking note of the hawks, can you also check on if their food source is available? Like in the last show, we talked about bugs and other all those things which attract birds, so they can feed on them. So you can check on
Right.
that chain as well. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. They feed on small rodents and they really carry them, but not that. I
mm-hmm.
don't think that would be preference. But they feed mostly not on now. Those sixer hawks don't typically feed on smaller birds, but they do feed on small mammals. And I can't. It's hard for me to know because it's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous to go down along the freeway.
Yeah, yeah,
Yet
I
there are
understand.
a presence of those.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe that's it. Maybe the work has disturbed their natural feed, and they've just retreated to the forest or whatever. But anyway, just these people, please
Yeah,
keep an eye out and
yeah. Thank you
try
for
to.
yeah. Thank you
All
for
right, thank
updating
you.
it to the people. Of course, everyone should keep an eye and word out, looking for it. Okay, for this show for a green future is also brought to you by our patrons. Today, we are very happy to announce once again. Cheer up for Clayton, who has joined at $50 per month. We want to be expressive and explosive thanks to Clayton and all our patrons. Uh, Now, patrons are those people who have gone to patreon.com, that is patreon.com, and searched for a green future. Our show popped up. They signed up to have a donation that comes out of their accounts and to us. And we thank our patrons because without them, we couldn't afford to keep doing this show. Now, I think we are already late for Rebecca's part. Rebecca, please take it away.
Alrighty, so quickly the Canadian wildfires. So for the people who are struggle remembering their grade school science, I thought I'd do a little some of the basics here. There was an interview on NPR of let's see, Quinn Barber, some people from the Canadian Forest Service, some people from the environmental scientist, and somebody from the BC Wildfire Service, asking why can't they put out the fires? Well, basically, too much fire, not enough firefighters. A lot more fire than usual on account of there wasn't any for years, or they suppressed them too vigorously, so there was all kind of kindling lying around, and then it got really, really, really hot. So basically, the provinces are having to do triage where they focus on the area where there's going to be a lot of life or property damage. Also, half of Canada, I did not know this, is forest, and a lot of them are remote wildernesses with no roads or infrastructure. So it's hard to get stuff out there. U.S., France, and Mexico and others have sent firefighters, and apparently, so they're choosing they're choosing the select fires, and the rest they're just letting burn and keeping an eye on them, basically. Also, these fires are exhibiting crown fire behavior, which comes in a couple varieties: passive crown fire, active crown fire behavior. So there are more fires, and there's also considerably more intense than usual. Is basically the answer to that.
Wow. So
So yeah, you want to? Do we have any environmental news?
yeah,
we
I
need to
got
cover now?
environmental news
Okay.
because we have only a few minutes left. So I'll just keep it short and just point out only a couple of the environmental news. Now, environmental and ecological news number one: Chinese connect world's largest wind turbine to the grid. China has taken the lead in wind power again by connecting a 16 megawatt turbine to the electrical grid. As reported in Interesting Engineering on July 20th, the offshore turbine off coast China's east coast is owned by the China Three Gorges Company, CTGC. The hub height is almost 500 feet, approximately the same as a 52-story building. The record-breaking turbine is part of a wind farm located in the Taiwan Straits off the coast of Fujian. That area has some of the best wind in the world, rated at level 7, which means wind speeds of over 32 miles daily. The blades are 827 feet long, with a swept area of more than 500,000 square feet. The amount of power in the wind is the square of the area. So, a turbine that has 3 times the area generates 9 times as much power. In a 20 miles per hour wind, 8 of these turbines would produce as much electricity as a nuclear power plant. Moving on to the next news. Gulf Stream could collapse by 2025. In a July 25 story in The Guardian, Damien Carrington reports that a new study shows that the Gulf Stream, or Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC, as it is known to scientists, is on the way to collapse and could shut down completely by 2025. This could cause incredible chaos in the world weather patterns and ocean food chains.
That's another reason behind the fires. When the Gulf Stream doesn't move, the heat domes don't move, and then there's fires under the heat domes and also flooding downstream.
That also.
Or south of them, usually.
Then now this could cause incredible chaos in the weather patterns and ocean food chains. Since the Gulf Stream carries warm water from the tropics up to northern Europe, some have suggested it could trigger ice age type conditions there. In fact, that was the premise of the disaster movie The Day After Tomorrow. However, given the current runaway global warming caused by the change in greenhouse gas levels, that scenario seems unlikely. Still, it means that oxygen and nutrients carried by the currents would stop circulating in the Atlantic oceans, leading to mass die-offs of oceanic lives from whales to planktons. That die-off would trigger huge releases of methane as dying sea life decomposes and Atlantic turns into a gigantic dead zone, like the ones that currently exist in places like the Gulf of Mexico. The causes are well known and have been reported here before. So these were some important ecological news. Although I have not covered all of them, but today's show was great. We had a caller and a great live interview. Thank you very much. Please keep calling us, keep texting us, keep emailing us. You can email us at joe@jodimair.foragreenfuture.org. Rebecca, last words.
Have a good week and stay green, everybody.
Have a great Sunday.
And I do believe it's time by them poops who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do